Hello, and welcome to the Let's Examine Addiction Honestly podcast. My name is Charles, and today we will be talking about essentially losing friends through sobriety. This really doesn't have to be if you've gone completely sober, if you've changed your life at all, tried to stop drinking as much, tried to go to I've never been to rehab, but AA, things like that, where you're not going out, you're not having a good time, and honestly, you just move away from these friends. I'm going to go over a few different friendships I've had that have gone away due to, drinking less. As I've moved throughout the years, I don't party every day like I used to. I'm not a huge partier on the weekend. I don't go out and buy people drinks or supply the alcohol, so I kind of lost a lot of my friends. So we'll be covering that. I found a decent article, and if I didn't mention it in the last podcast, I know I'm going over articles right now. It just kind of gives me the headspace and the direction to kind of go over these heavy topics that I want to go over, but really wouldn't know where to go if it were just me wandering on my own. It's kind of a little bit of direction. So once I can start getting guests and figuring this out, I will change it up. But thank you so much for being patient with me while I figure everything out. And as always, please understand that I'm not a trained professional and do not use this podcast as an alternative to proven medical methods such as AA, NA, therapy, rehab, and etc. So the article I found is actually called ditchthedrink.com. That's the website it's on. It's called What Nobody Tells You About Friends in Sobriety. And one of the main things that stuck out to me outside of it being in bold is I lost people and it hurt, which rung true a lot for me, even though I'm not completely sober, but moving honestly towards that direction, especially how I've been feeling lately, was people that I thought were really good friends honestly weren't. And looking back, a lot of them did kind of use me. And in all honesty, out of the examples I'm going to use today, I'm going to go over like 3 of my biggest friendships. One really used me. The other 2 kind of went their own way and kind of got into harder stuff. And then the last one is actually about losing a child that was potentially mine and just the confusion around that, to be honest. While it was a friendship, I don't even know how to feel about that one, in all honesty. And the first major part of the article, it states that endings are sometimes necessary even when they break your heart. This was kind of, I'll call him D-Man. We were friends for a long time. We were friends since like middle school, I'd say. We moved apart once I went into the military, but I came back, ended up reconnecting, hit it off like we were friends before, even though neither of us had known what we had gone through in that time apart. I didn't know he had gone down to Florida, got messed up in like drugs and addiction, even tried something called robo-tripping that I'd never heard of until he explained it to me. And his life went a bit sideways, which I didn't truly know once I asked him to move in with me. I guess at some point he had ended up getting in trouble. He was sleeping in his car. After he'd been drinking, he threw the keys somewhere but lost his license. And to be honest, when this friendship ended, I wasn't even close to considering quitting drinking. This was more of I realized that he had been using me for the entire time that he lived with me. I had ended up supplying him with money for food. Every time I'd leave, he'd drink my alcohol. He was supposed to be getting a job, but instead would steal my video game systems out of my room and then sit around all day. He never held a real job while he lived with me. He was trying to become a streamer, and then he tried a lot of the get rich quick schemes, like selling vacuums door to door and a whole bunch of other things that never worked out. Even once he did get a real job there towards the end, he was working with my other roommate who I still live with, but a whole bunch of chaos ended up going on there as well. I guess he had moved over to Holland, Michigan, and then his trailer caught on fire because his dog had tore through his door or something. I don't know. It's even crazier than my life, to be honest, from everything I had heard. And he would honestly take advantage of any woman who liked him. He essentially used the woman I'll talk about later and then used her to go like skydiving. He ended up using another girl that we had gone to high school with who was madly in love with him. And honestly, looking back, it was kind of a train wreck of a friendship. And while I think about it quite a bit, I don't regret in the least ending the friendship. It does hurt a lot. Mostly being used for so long and not even caring, because essentially I was supporting everything, made sure he had a place to live, ensured that he had food, ensured he apparently had drink, because he'd drink everything of mine. He was using my video game systems, living in my house, doing whatever he liked. And while we did have fun partying, just once I slowed down and kind of got busy with work and trying to get my degree in criminal justice and everything kind of fell apart and got pushed to the side, honestly. And at a certain point, I got tired of being used, which, as much as I've used people, is a lot to say. Honestly, there are a lot of things I regret that I'll eventually go over. I don't know if I'm ready to talk about right now, but he also ended up having his cousin in here at one point, and neither of them did anything. It was like they were using it as a frat house. And after all these years, it's kind of, I won't even say hurtful. It's more than that, honestly, that he's never even apologized, that they used me for so much and essentially lived off me, rent free. They didn't pay for their own food, anything, until I ended up essentially kicking them out. And the worst part is he made me go through the whole process of actually having him evicted, which is insane to me, especially because he was trying to, I guess, sue my insurance company because his dog and mine got into a scuffle, and then he said he got in between them, and my dog bit him. So I unfortunately don't know how that played out because I was at work at the time, and knowing him and just everything we had been through, for him to make such a money grab, he was essentially harassing my roommate that I still live with while they were at work because they worked at Lifeline together, about how he was suing me and he was going to make all this money. And knowing that our entire friendship of at least 8+ years all came down to what he could make off my insurance company was extremely hurtful outside of everything else. I mean, I was already going through a lot. I'm not completely a victim either. I mean, I voluntarily drank with him, but for him to take such gross advantage of me was extremely hurtful, especially when, while I've never reached out to him, I was also super mad about everything that went down, and being on the side that was used, the least he could have done at some point was reach out to me and, hey, can we talk about it or something like that? And he's never done any of that at all, which after all the memories I have from him and one of my other friends, I would say good friend, I've known him for a long time, but I've tried to reconnect with him and hang out with him, and he doesn't want to. He's always been super awkward. That's a whole different story for another time. He ended up marrying a girl who was a few years underage and had to have her parents sign off, in which in Michigan is kind of a different topic. So unfortunately, but that friend honestly never really drank with me, so that's not really an issue that will ever come up in the podcast. But the next two I'm going to talk about are, and they go with this article really, really well, honestly, which we'll call them Sam and Kay. They were a couple I used to hang out with a lot. They actually are related to one of my best friends. I haven't seen him in a long time, but I'd still consider him one of my best friends. Kay is actually his sister, and I at one time offered for her and her it was 2 at the time, kids to move in with me because she was bouncing around. And then Sam accused me of wanting to be with her, even though it was never about that. Honestly, one of the things I've always held up, even through my roughest patches of alcohol, is I've always looked out for the kids in my life. I would never put them in danger, never get behind the wheel if I had kids with me. I would never drink if I had kids with me. And then he accused me of wanting to be with her and told me to take good care of her. And it's like, what are you talking about? I'm not trying to steal your wife. I'm trying to make sure, her and your son and her oldest daughter have a place to live that's not a camper or something like that. So we used to drink all the time together, used to have, fun. They ended up getting into a wreck. Their one buddy wanted to go do something. He wanted to go to a friend's house or something. So 4 of them loaded up into a vehicle. They ended up driving out of this house, and it was kind of a very steep S-curves and a hill up near my hometown, and ended up not taking the turn correctly and rolled the vehicle off a hill. Thankfully, everybody was okay. The one guy was so drunk he wandered off to a neighbor's house and ended up calling the police. So my buddy actually ended up getting either a DUI or an MIP because he went there to try to get the vehicle out, and the police showed up and thought he was the one driving it. Because honestly, how are you going to explain that chaos to anybody who shows up at the scene? You sound like a lunatic and like you've been drinking. And he might have been drinking. He's not a big drinker. Most of my really good friends that are still around that I can rely on, where I say, dude, I need something. I need advice. I need to go look at something. What do you think about this? It's definitely Darren, Casey, and Roy. Those 3 have never failed me. Even in my worst points, especially during like drinking, they have always been there for me and are three of the best people on the planet. Out of the three of them, none of them have the problem with alcohol like I do. And it's why I understand my dad, he's lost his really good friends, Rex and Jerry. They both ended up passing away, and he's told me, like, you can make new friends, but at 35, while I can make new friends, I'm never going to find friends like the three I have that I can trust more than anything. And honestly, I told him that I'm never gonna have to worry about losing my friends. I'm gonna be the first to go, which is super dark, but honestly, it's one of the things that I hope I never really have to go through, because I've seen what it's done to my dad, and it's absolutely devastated him, losing his friends he knew he could rely on. And my dad's a super alcoholic. He has had all the work done, all the labs, says he's super healthy, and somehow that poor guy, he's blind, essentially. They say legally, but he is blind, and lost the two best people he knows that would have helped him through anything. All of the rest of his friends are absolutely garbage, honestly, and they've gotten into far worse things. He's sobered up way far more than he was like even a year ago, where he was drinking every day. He drinks a couple times a week now, but he was having his furnace issues about a month ago, and none of his drinking friends, since either they quit or he slowed down, would come out and help him replace his furnace. So he had to pay about $8,000 to have a company come out and install stuff for him, which aggravated me, because he's the type of person who, even if he's drinking, all you'd have to do is buy him a case of beer, and he'd come out and he'd do anything. He wouldn't care if his body was super sore, if he had stuff to do. He'd make sure that you were taken care of, especially if it's something like heat in the winter. So I'm sorry, I got off on that tangent and sidetracked super bad, but I know I was talking about Sam and Kay, which honestly, even after we stopped hanging out, they got into far harder drugs. It's one of the reasons I got into, trying to foster and take care of their kids. One of the reasons where I don't want to drink anymore. I'd rather help the kids in my life, to be honest. I sat through it so much. There were times when my dad and his second wife would want to sit somewhere drinking, and then we'd be sleeping in the car until like 2 a.m. until they got done partying. And honestly, sometimes I don't know how I survived hearing all those stories. And my dad regrets it. He's said it to me multiple nights when we've been having a drink together, and I know he never meant it super maliciously, and I've told him he could have tried all he wanted. He was also blind, and there's things he could have done, honestly, if you look at some of the people in history, but he also can't kick himself for everything he's done. He's got grandkids, and then the kids that I take in that he's also been super nice to and done everything for, and would give anything to just help out anyone. I've seen how he's acted around kids. I've been protective of my sisters and my nephews, and just the type of man he was, even when he was drinking, which I've tried to hold up even when I was in my worst drinking. I tried, at least if I was hanging out with my brothers, I wouldn't risk their lives, or I wouldn't risk anybody else's safety when I was drinking. And one of the hardest parts about getting sober, I honestly think, is knowing that some of my friends never would have given the same thought to their kids, especially Sam and Kay. I mean, Kay had her kids in the car one day. She had lent it to somebody who was in another city. They used it to rob a bank. So police and a whole bunch of other federal units ended up pulling their car over. The kids had to call their grandma, essentially with police surrounding their car, to come and get them and try to describe the highway and where they were to their grandma. Which is why I've always, for the last 8 years or so, paid for my buddy's niece to have a phone so she can contact her grandma at all times and make sure that she is okay in case any of this stuff happens. I've seen them slide downhill so far, and while I'm not perfect, I'll honestly admit it. There's a lot I wish I wouldn't have done, a lot of drinks I wish I wouldn't have taken, a lot of turns I wish I would have made instead of, going drinking or something like that. But I've always tried to take care of, especially the kids in my life, which I think has hit me the hardest. Not in terms of quitting drinking or anything, which I apologize if this podcast is a little bit all over the place. It's one that brings up a lot of emotions, honestly. Those two are the reason I got into fostering, because of the 3 kids they have in their care. It worries me so much most days. I've had Kay's daughter cry to us not wanting to go home because either her mom was doing adult work to make money to feed her habit, or she found out that her mom was doing something called hot shots, which has a great chance of being lethal, and she found a heroin needle in her youngest brother's diaper. And none of that's a reason to drink. drink. It's honestly one of the reasons I've stayed sober when they've been around and tried to be here and try to take them to do stuff, take them to museums, to water parks, amusement parks, everything, just to make sure that they know that they're cared about, because I've seen what they've gone through and it absolutely breaks my heart so much. But the next part of the article actually talks about getting sober and people not understanding, and while you're having an alcohol problem being the loneliest place on earth, but sober getting worse, which truly was. I mean, I worked at the prison for 3 years. We used to go out drinking every night after work, and it was almost like a ritual. We'd get off at 10. If we weren't held over for a 16-hour shift, we'd go and we'd drink at Applebee's, head home, and it was almost like a ritual. And ever since I quit there and not gone over to Ionia and not been drinking and partying with them as much, which I don't think a lot of them do party anymore, to be honest, but it's so hard to get in contact with them or nail down a date to just hang out, go fishing, sit and talk. It's just super disheartening knowing that all that happens, which they weren't really drinking friends in that sense, but they also were friends that I drink with, which I think has taken a huge toll on me, even with not even going completely sober, just cutting back. And I don't want to go have a drink with them or anything. I'd just love to sit and talk to somebody who knows what I'm going through. Not even the addiction portion and the drinking, but everything else we went through, working in law enforcement, working in a prison. It's just, there's no one else I can really talk to be honest. But in this aspect, this article did give me a lot to think about, to be honest, because as I talked about in the past, Darren, Roy, and Casey are some of my strongest friendships, and this article talks about that and how some friendships will honestly be strengthened, which is those three. None of them drink. None of them have ever used me at all for anything. There's times I've been a complete D-bag to them and said regretful things and skipped out on time with them to drink, and they still are some of my best friends. I could rely on them for anything. I can call them up right now and tell them I need something done, and they'd either find some way to do it, someone nearby that could help me, something. They have been absolutely amazing. Roy actually came and got me after my DUI, helped me get my car back, which was a lot to ask for somebody who was going through a lot in his life as well. And I'd never change those relationships and friendships. Honestly, I'd give anything to keep them. If they told me I needed to go sober tomorrow, not do anything, in a heartbeat, I would. But the next part about finding sober friends, that's been the hardest part for me. I've tried doing different things. I've tried volunteering. A lot of the organizations I deal with or have volunteered with have either been people who aren't sober, who don't have addiction, or honestly just, I'm bad at finding friends, to be honest. I've been volunteering at the American Legion, and either it's a lot of drinking or helping out and trying to make sure other people are taken care of, which I prefer, to be honest. But I wouldn't even know how to make some of the friends. With all that I've gone through, especially with D, I just assume somebody's trying to use me, so that's how I feel when I'm trying to make friends, and I don't want to be that burden on somebody and have them think that I'm just trying to be friends with them to get something out of them, which is never the case. I don't do anything down at the Legion expecting something in return. Honestly, I have so many great memories of my great-grandma, who, crazy enough, did drink quite a bit, but I have so many memories from it that I wanted to help out and go down there because I have all them good memories, and it's been amazing, especially all the things that they've done for me, but I could never imagine trying to make friends there, and I don't know why. It's one of those things where, I know a lot of them are going down there to drink, so it would probably be the same if we were hanging out, and I don't know what we would even talk about. And contrary to the article, I don't really see myself as having a lot of an ego. I know I'm a maniac and an absolute insane person, but I don't feel like I have an ego and try to push myself off as much as some people. I've also tried to pull back on being about me or trying to share my stories, and realizing that it's better to listen to other people, which I think honestly is just having so much craziness go on in my life that I want to share the stuff I've done, which I've been doing through podcasting, but it also carries over to real life, which I hate so much because I don't want to be that person who people are like, he's just going to talk about himself. It worries me so much, to be honest. But honestly, relating to the lasting connection from the article and talking about the groups that make you feel like home. The Legion's definitely been one of them. You don't have to drink. During our meetings, we can't drink, which is great. They're on Tuesdays, so I go in there, I do the finance stuff, and I don't drink because I'm going into work that night. They don't allow alcohol at the tables while we're doing the meetings. And honestly, I've been trying to volunteer more with them and get into more of the stuff and trying to take care of things, especially with the children's stuff, which I think honestly would help keep me sober and keep my life at least partially on the right track. I hate so much that sometimes my life's absolutely chaotic, and there's times where I think about my DUI and the kid that was potentially mine that I've lost, and there's so much regret on some of the things I've done that I've honestly tried volunteering so much just to get rid of some of that guilt. And not in a way like, oh, I'm going to do this and that's going to expunge me when I meet my maker. It's nothing like that. I don't care about what happens when I pass into the next world, but just trying to help somebody and make up for all that absolutely usefulness that I've felt and pushed off on this world. Like, if I were to go tomorrow, I don't know if anybody'd have a truly good story about me. There's your side, my side, and the truth, and I don't think the truth is that great. I think people would probably miss me, but I want to make sure that, not even for the clout and making sure that I'm missed, but making sure that I know, at least as much of a screw up as I was, that I left this place slightly better than it was and left. That's why I made this podcast, to be honest, to make sure if I reach one person and you're like, I didn't feel so alone, your story helped me, I kind of related to something, I think it'd not be an amazing feeling, but make my life seem like it was worth something outside of being an alcoholic. I already carry so much resentment from, surviving 2 tours that I thought were kind of a farce being financed, because so many people ended up losing their lives that were arguably probably far better than me. So I would just like to end off on the author talking about it being beautiful that they made new friends who never knew them as a drinker, and how having these friendships in sobriety, because honestly, even the times I've been sober have been hard, but maintaining these friendships of people who never knew you were a drinker, I honestly couldn't imagine it. I don't have any friends now who don't know I'm an idiot and a wild person when I drink, but just know there's something out there for you. And you may lose some what you think are good friends, but don't really add any value to your life. And you should just know that no matter what, there's gotta be some way to find a friend. I've been trying to talk to my dad about it and get him to join his local American Legion as a son who was in the military, or his father was in the military, or really have any positive outlook, which I don't have a positive outlook because I'm a moron most of the time. So I usually have that pessimistic view, but just know that, if anything, I would love to build something like that where people can talk about, I have 3 days sober. One of the things I thought was weirdest about AA was people would come in and be like, I'm a day sober, and then people would look down on them, which I know a day, I go days at a time. I go all week without drinking, try to go through most of the weekends without drinking. So 24 hours is nothing, but if you don't support a person like that, they have no reason to stay sober. And I'm not saying that to every AA, that's just what I experienced when I was doing mine. But finally, we'll go over B and the possible kid we had. I don't know for sure. I never got to meet her, unfortunately, and sadly all I have are signed cremation documents, because unknown to me, she was trying to get her cremated because she was looking at a criminal trial. I had met her in about 2013 from D, actually, which is obviously not a good sign. And we lost touch when she moved out of state before we reconnected in 2015. I knew she was a recovering opiate addict, especially because she got mixed in some things when she moved out of state. We reconnected, and then I admitted to her that I always had the biggest crush on her. But after we had reconnected, I was going through my DUI and a few other things, and she moved out of state when she said she was pregnant, and then ended up having the kid. Ended up apparently going out, accidentally smothered the kid in her sleep, was found to have methamphetamine and cocaine in her system along with alcohol just a few hours after the baby had passed, and was lethargic and stuff when first responders ended up coming. So that does also kind of weigh heavily on me. Granted, that's not a friendship, but I'd say it's a little bit more just a not knowing. But you've also heard me ramble on in a very chaotic and emotional episode episode, especially for it only being episode 10. I just want to thank you so much for listening. If you come back, I do appreciate you. If you don't think this podcast is for you, please let me know what I could do better. I would appreciate it. I know there's a lot I could, and I need help from people like you. So please like, subscribe, share. You can email me at letsexamineaddictionhonestly@gmail.com or theleahpodcast@gmail.com, especially with any feedback, ideas, or stories. And finally, as Alan Watts said, you are under no obligation to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago. Have a wonderful rest of your week. I wish you the best of luck in any of your endeavors. Bye.